Yay!
Hello, amigos and amigas de La Mundo. My name is Host Eric. I am the host of Talking with Famous People, and I've got a holiday greeting for you. These tissues are very listless.
That's a good one. That's really good. That should be on the card.
I mean, my tissues are very listless. My tissues are very listless. My tissues are very listless.
I like that. My tissues are very listless.
I don't know what to think of the next
And
part.
you can use them if you sneeze.
No, it has to be something that sounds like, and a Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Band-Aid wrappers do beer. My tissues are very listless, and Band-Aid wrappers do beer.
Nice.
No, and I guess we'll go with and gray wrappers do beer.
Yeah.
Brew beer. And gray wrappers. And gay rappers brew beer. And gay rappers brew beer.
That's
Probably good, yeah. So we'll go, my tissues are very listless, and gay rappers brew beer.
That's a good one.
That's my holiday greeting. So if somebody says Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas to me, I'll say, my tissues are very listless, and gay rappers brew beer. And I'll say, what? I'll say, you know what I said. The typical holiday greeting that sounds similar. Obviously, I wouldn't deviate from that. Why would I? That's crazy talk. So, this video is called Functions, Nature, Nurture, and Poo? Functions, Nature, Nurture, and what? What did I call it? Functions, Nature, Nurture, and functions, behavior, nature, and intertype. That's what I called it. So I'm currently away from the debate tournament. I'll go back there in time for the third round and the fourth round as well, I suppose. Yes, fourth round as well. And I got a judge in those rounds 3 and 4. So I'm taking advantage of this opportunity to make this live stream. What prompted the topic was what Rachel and I were talking about prior to me starting this live stream. And I also want to note, there may be some sort of problem with this live stream in terms of notifications or something, because shortly before I actually successfully launched it, I attempted to launch one that said, you can't live stream right now for some reason. So I don't know what's going on with that. Regardless, specifically what we were talking about prior to me starting this live stream was, what comprised healthy interaction between people, what comprised unhealthy interaction between people, and what comprised the difference between being in love and loving somebody. So on the question of being in love, I can't really tell you exactly what that means. I might affirm it and say, yes, I am in love with Rachel. Or I might tell Rachel a lot of times, I love you. But I don't really know what I mean when I say that. I don't know if other people do.
Like to describe it?
I mean, I know that my experience with Rachel is much more consistently positive than with any other partner I've ever been with. I know that I miss her when I'm not around her for stretches of time.
Me too.
But I don't know what it means to say that I love her or am in love with her really in any sort of way that I can make falsifiable, I guess. And to me, something doesn't mean something unless it's falsifiable, really. Like, okay, well, if you want the word love to mean something, then I need to know what indicators there would be that would negate the status of love. And since I can't really come up with any specific indicators that necessarily negate that, because supposedly it's a state of emotion, then I don't really know what I mean when I say it. But what I will say is that I do know what I mean when I say behave lovingly towards somebody, and that's a different description. And one of my favorite songs by Billy Bragg. Yeah, I do have a bipolar. I do know what it means to say, though, that I'll answer the Billy Bragg question in a second. I know what it means, though, to say that to behave lovingly with somebody. And I know what it means to have disputes. I know what it means to resolve disputes. I know what it means to be generally satisfied with realities or generally dissatisfied with realities. But, one question I would typically get to way too late is the question of, is this the right relationship? Am I with the right person? And that has to do, I think, with being an NE-DOM who's made a decision. So it's like, once I made the decision to be in a relationship, thank you, hello there, then I do my best to make that relationship work, which means I'm genuinely not opening up the question of whether or not I'm with the right person. I'm focusing on the appropriate level of thing to focus on to critique, namely, is this behavior I'm dealing with their fault or my fault? If it's my fault, I need to change. If it's their fault, they need to change. Now, this seems a perfectly reasonable way to go about relationships in general, because most relationships will need to have some sort of conflict resolution. In fact, all relationships need to have some sort of conflict resolution.
This is so true.
So if you're going to have conflict resolution, the best way to do it is to make sure both parties are fully heard, to seek to find a solution that is win-win, at least in the following fashion. That you go, all right, I'm going to make the concession here that I'm the problem in this area. This particular behavior is a problem. I'm going to change that behavior. The way to make it win-win is for the other party to say, I recognize the significance of what you've just done, and acknowledging that. I really appreciate that. That I recognize that that's as much a factor in making the relationship work as your behavior is a problem in the relationship. That the framework, namely the willingness to be reasonable and to seek the team the team interests represents the proper approach to a relationship. That it shows you actually care about the other person. That shows actual FI. Like my FI shows when I'm willing to make some sort of sacrifice, or even if it's not sacrifice, when I'm honest and objective about what I've done wrong and admit that and acknowledge that and give my partner the power that is afforded to her accordingly. So, like, if I do something wrong, like let's say Rachel and I go to a party and I ignore her the whole party to talk to Frank James and don't include her in the conversation with Frank James. Me and Frank James go off to chat and do cocaine and leave Rachel be. Now, she'd be very upset by that. I'm quite sure. And that would take a lot of work on my end to remedy, especially because she's an NI dom, she would take from that conclusions about me as a person and how I'm going to behave going forward based on who I am, not based on the fact that behaviors always repeat, which is what an SI dom would do, but rather based on the fact that she could no longer fundamentally trust me as a human being to have her interests in mind. When in a situation like that where I ought to have known better and certainly did, maybe we would have talked about it beforehand even, and then I didn't follow through on something that was basic as attending to her interest in that situation, then it would be a significant harm to the relationship. Now, somebody inauthentic, an ENFP who's inauthentic might say, we have to separate this individual instance out from everything else. And what's the big deal? So I didn't meow you at one party. That's not but as two metaphysical types, we know that's bullshit. Now, for some people, that might not be bullshit. Those are called sensors. And sometimes to them, the meanings of things are secondary to the actualities of things. So, like, one could imagine an ISFJ feeling satisfied if they put their ESTP partner in a similar bind to get even. That's not going to satisfy either Rachel or I.
True.
That approach, because we're just going to feel like now this thing is poisoned fundamentally into this tit for tat adversarial, distrusting fuckery. You
want to know the truth?
Yeah.
I've been looking for you the whole party. I know myself. I've been talking to people along the way, but I've been looking for you the whole time.
I wouldn't let you get separated from me.
I know. I'm just saying.
I like to pick examples when I can that I know I'm not going to ever do.
I know, but I'm saying in that scenario, that's what I would be doing, and you're correct. I'd be fucking pissed as hell.
Yeah, they do shift ground. I think the shifting ground would be more an ISFJ thing than the ESTP. But regardless, let me address briefly the Billy Bragg question. I like a lot of his stuff, but some of the songs I like are She's Got a New Spell, Little Black Cloud in a Dress, is that what it was called? And then Valentine's Day Is Over.
Yeah. You're reminding me of the story of the song. I'm like, Valentine's Day is over.
It may have been Camelot for Jack and Jacqueline, but on the shade of our highway, Greatly Forward, that song is called. I like that one. I like I am the milkman of human kindness, would I leave an extra pint?
That's cute.
Oh, Shirley is great. Shirley, it's quite exciting to be sleeping here in this new room. Shirley, you're my reason to get out of bed before noon. What was it that up England? How can you sit there and talk of England when you don't even know who's in the team? Shirley, The sexual politics have got me all in a muddle. Surely in an ideological huddle. Celebrating my love for you with a pint of beer and a new tattoo. And if you haven't noticed yet, I'm more impressionable when my cement is wet. Pretty good lyrics, right? Yeah, that's ENFP at his finest right there. That's some good ENFP. You know, he's got some sad lyrics too, like that Valentine's Day over.
So sad. They know how to do sad well. Like, I believe that Jewel is an ENFP, and that You Were Meant for Me. I swear, like the video version of that song, all the time. I'm like, I know what you mean.
Or like, you know, this is.
Do you want the lights over here too?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. The Price I Pay. The Price I Pay is great. Great lyrics.
Oh, that's
right?
Yeah.
The Price I Pay goes, my friend said she could see no one ahead, and I was probably better off without you. She said to face up to the fact that you weren't coming back, and she could make me happy like you used to. But I'm sorry to say I turned her away, knowing everything she said was true. And that's the price I pay for loving you the way that I do. There's something inside that hurts my foolish pride to visit the places we used to go together. Not a day goes by that I don't sit and wonder why your feelings for me didn't last forever. Girl, I love you so much that, baby, it's such I'd walk a mile with a stone in my shoe.
Oh, that's impressive.
Isn't that a great song? So
It is.
great.
It really is.
Great lyrics, great song.
Hey, afternoon. What's up, everyone?
Yeah, Jewel's probably ENFP. Jewel might be an ESFP.
She might be. I don't know for sure. I just noticed, like, what you said, how Billy Bragg doesn't have any. She's always guitar or piano. So
There's no drums, yeah. Why ain't there no drums in your music, Billy Bragg? Jewel's this crappy ass pseudo poet, self-important aromatherapy loving, yoga doing SFP tard.
You Were Meant for Me. That's the song, but you should get the radio version, not the album version. It's different for some reason. But no, Billy Bragg is definitely different. I was just thinking about Jewel, how she doesn't use drums, and that's her like You Were Meant for Me, and like this other one about these small hands or something. I don't know. I wasn't a huge
These small hands touching my vagina lips. These small hands calling my fingers.
Yeah.
I love the smell of my own vagina. I'm Jewel. My feelings are moist. As moist as my vagina. Good idea, Isaiah Rude. Might as well just play and upload them all at first until you realize that half of them suck ass. Let it happen naturally.
True.
Yeah, but Billy Bragg is a good lyricist.
I agree.
Acting crazy, but always sits there dumb and he cries like a baby bunny. And he can't read, then he fights this loneliness that you call freedom. I said, what happened if you? Yeah, it's Time Bomb. Okay. Sometimes I'm trying to think of another song and I can't figure out. I get stuck in a different song, you know.
Mm-hmm. It is how any writing music works, and it shows that you have any because you're able to say those lyrics like that, like blah 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 blah.
That's SI. The only reason I remember those lyrics is because I listened to them a lot when I was a teenager, and I seem to remember all the lyrics of shit I listened to when I was younger. Yeah, especially like ages 11 through 17 or something. If I listened to it in that time period, it really seemed to imprint and stick in my mind. So I think your SI goes through stages. Everybody's SI probably does. Goes through an imprinting stage early on where you learn all the shit you're going to learn. You're supposed to be using for the rest of your life, right? Well, I ends up I have used for the rest of my life those songs that I learned as a kid, and that they've influenced my NI about what's good and stuff. They've reflected my NI as a kid.
Yeah.
which was just as good as it is now, frankly. I knew what was good then too.
That fucking counts.
I didn't used to listen to it as reliably as I do now. Like I'd be swayable by FE things to be like, yeah, that's cool. But I knew then. Can I put that into plain English? The NI thing? Well, look, NI basically knowing what's good is one way to put it. If you listen to 5 songs and it's very clear to you which one is better than the other ones, and you can even explain why to some extent, while acknowledging that you can't exactly prove it, but sort of at least internally thinking, but it nevertheless is so beyond just my subjective opinion. So this is the issue with art is, the predominant affirmative here is all artistic position statements are subjective because they can't be determined with a sort of deductive certainty that other kinds of argumentation can. But that's because the truth it's not because the truth of aesthetic truths is less true than the truths of argumentational truths. It's because it's less reducible. So you can't exactly reduce in full any particular song that is great as to why it's great. So in that regard, it requires NI and not TI. But they're both objective calculi. In other words, they're calculating objective data. That's what they're designed to calculate. Now, NI is a knowledge sort of calculation. They're both epistemology functions of a sort. But, what would you say are the possible limitations or flaws of your system other than the obvious lack of empirical data? That's not a flaw or limitation of the system. That's a stage of development of any true model.
That's
any successful theory begins as an intuitively presented notion that is fleshed out with some sort of supporting stuff. The argumentation can be mathematics. The argumentation can be argumentation like I'm making. It can be modeling. There's a lot of different ways we so-called argue theories. But the point is, it's the lack of empirical data is indicative of the fact that I'm presenting something like plate tectonics. It took a long time before plate tectonics was empirically established. It nevertheless was true for a long time because of a lack of empirical data. People assumed the expanding Earth theory was true and went with that for a long time. The Earth was like a balloon, gradually getting bigger, which is why the continents got further apart from each other. Empirical data eventually proved the guy who came up with tectonic plates and all that kind of shit. Right. But he was right the whole time, you see.
Yeah, he was just gathering.
He was just as right before empirical data proved him as he was after empirical data proved him. So it's important to remember that. However, to address the question, which is an excellent question, what would you say are the possible limitations or flaws of your system?
It is a good question.
It is limited. It is limited definitionally to attentional channels. I think we are inherently limited in describing cognitive functions in that we can describe them relationally to each other in terms of, say, frame and stuff, but it's important to remember that cognition itself is an open system. So by metacognating, we change the way we ourselves cognate. And as a consequence, awareness of attentional channel stuff is going to make one less and less prone to correlative typing. So now, because I only have 3 tests for polar, and because none of the 3 tests for polar is absolutely definitive on where polar begins and the next weakest slot ends, which is probably 4. Weak being the thing is, the only 3 functions you can really describe in terms of strong and weak are the 3 that you have the polar test for: TI, SI, and NE. Because those you can say we have a normative scale here. This is good and this is bad. The rest of them, you don't have anything equivalent like that. So you need more than 3 to be able to definitively establish a type, unless they're one of the 3 one of those 3 polars. Now, even if they are one of those 3 polars, you still have 2 other types to choose from. 2 types to choose between. So you need more than 3 polar tests to definitively type anyone in a way that's argumentationally irrefutable. Now, there's a difference between irrefutable and defeatable. So what I'm saying is my argumentation is undefeatable, because to defeat it will require a preferable alternative, and none exists because I got it right. That doesn't mean it's not. It doesn't mean it's irrefutable. Any individual typing that is done using my approach is absolutely refutable, because I can't definitively establish such that it would be irrefutable. In other words, with deductive certainty, using my approach, that the typing I provide is certain. And I don't, for a few different reasons. Like, I haven't put together the empirics myself to actually, which I have the capacity to put together. Namely, I could keep track of everyone's TI test results, ask equivalent but different TI questions each time, ask this equivalent but different, the same amount of questions each time, and grade them objectively, so to speak. And what's polar? And a simple one-liner asking for a friend.
That's funny.
It's your place of least resistance is what it stands for, and it refers to the cognitive function that you understand least, you attend with least consciously, or willfully, I should say, is a better way to put it. In other words, for me, I almost never willfully exercise FI, although I'm trying to get some concept of what it's like to do that. It's basically, it's like lying down with Rachel and saying, I want some FI time, means I lie there and say words that are FI words until I start to feel something. Like, I love you. And then, I start to feel rye, and I start to kind of roll around. It kind of converts into ENFP's place of least resistance is TI, logic. Logical argumentation is their place of least resistance. My place of least resistance is their tool function, FI, that is, say, my own feelings. So I'm very susceptible to attacks on my own feelings, which is why it's called place of least resistance. I was in a relationship for 2.5 years where my significant other was hurting my feelings on a very regular basis. And for a long time, I tried to translate that with TI, which was to say I'd do an objective calculus and find what aspects of these critiques are legitimate and try to change those behaviors of myself. It didn't work because it wasn't well-intentioned. It was intentioned to hurt my feelings. And so I didn't know how to deal with that, though. I didn't know what to do with somebody hurting my feelings. I didn't realize what it meant to have boundaries. I learned how to establish boundaries that are based on your introverted feeling in that relationship, because I had to. I learned what it meant to have FI boundaries versus what it means to have reasonable boundaries. And unreasonable boundaries may be absolutely the correct thing to have in given circumstances. The fact that they're unreasonable doesn't make them bad. Not everything ought to be reasoned out. What sort of FI words do you like to exchange with Rachel? I've got shit tons of them. I don't know. I say to her, I'm constantly being re-astonished by your beauty again for the first time forever, always. I tell her that, which is true. True statement. I tell her that I love her from her mia to her mia to her pia to her pia to her pio to her pio. I tell her that she's my she's my cornucopia of angelic magnificence. The wonder
Christmas
of which
cordials.
the my bucket of Christmas cordials or something.
Yeah.
I got all sorts of names for her. I called her the other day my little chicken tender or something. I don't know. She referred to me as her forbidden chocolate, so she's now her permissible vanilla. She's the archangel of earthly delights.
They're so good. It always impresses me so much.
I'd like to keep a catalog of them. That's why I need Magic Sky Friend.
Yeah,
Keep track of everything I say.
Magic Sky Friend.
When it comes to cognitive function with opposite attitudes, would you say the introverted function constrains the extroverted one, and that the extroverted function resets the introverted one? It depends on their slot as to what they do in relation to each other. So, for example, as an extroverted intuition Dom, introverted intuition is my fifth slot. I ignore it in the sense that I'm not generally gathering and allowing to collapse the various data points that one would need to utilize NI effectively in my life in general. Instead, I'm actively ideating, while the NI Dom is presumably, I don't know what goes on in NI Dom's head. I'm not sure.
Too much.
I'm sure they're doing their own kind of ideating that's different than the kind I'm doing. Mm-hmm. They're probably thinking about stuff that's existent more and what it means.
Yeah, there's too much meaning.
Whereas I'm thinking about conditionalities mostly. Like, well, if I were to argue this, then this would possibly be a line of weakness in my block. Or, regardless of what I'm thinking about, I tend to think about it in those kind of terms, like not what shit means, because I'm ignoring NI, rather what I can say, what I might say, what somebody else might say, and how I can, and what those things can be said to mean is another thing. Like what somebody says and what it can be said to mean are different things, and things that I am very much attending to in my head all the time. They're not very wordy compared to any users, and DOMs for sure. Rachel felt very satisfied this morning, but execution of not this morning, the video I watched yesterday or whatever, about her execution of a story in short and determinate fashion. And then she was like, now that's how you tell a story. And I thought, that's hilarious, because I sometimes will, after a flurry of any, kind of pat myself on the back a bit, and be like, that was some patter right there. That was some flow. Pat, pat, pat. See, that's what it looks like when I don't do the same thing. It's cool.
It is.
I like being wordy and satirize my wordiness by being wordy. It's a simple cycle of solecism and sexy piao. I couldn't disagree with that. I mean, who would? That makes perfectly good sense. I agree. Typing Rachel than any Dom makes no sense. But some people do. Love language correlates with type. I don't know about that. My love language is language, Your love language is mostly language too.
Yeah, it is. I definitely would say I affirm a lot. I like to.
And you like my words too.
I do.
And I think our second love language is physical touch. And our third one is what?
Acts of service.
Yeah.
Or gifts.
Yeah.
They're like even, right?
Acts of service.
Yeah.
What's after gifts? Is there one other one?
That's it.
Oh, quality time.
Oh.
No, quality time comes before acts of service.
It's like so normal for us that it doesn't even look.
It's like, do we have any non-quality time?
No, it's the most obvious one.
we have both quantity and quality time.
Yeah.
It's separate, Elijah Rude. You can choose to put them together because they're not exclusive of each other at all. But you don't have to put them together. And if you don't include a Negro, then you can always put some matters of display off onto a Negro. You can say, okay, well, that's not really a function matter. That's a matter of how one relates to things emotionally, and that's an Enneagram matter. It's like a type 7 ENTP is going to look different than a type 5 ENTP in display a little bit. If you're doing a function analysis or a process analysis on cognitive functions, that shouldn't really matter at all because you're going to find ENTP either way. But then somebody outside is going to go, well, why do these two ENTPs look different? There must be subtypes. Well, there are sort of. People have. I don't put a lot of. I'm not prepared, nor am I willing, nor am I interested in TI defending a Negro. Right. So I'm interested and willing and expected to and expect to have to defend my position on cognitive functions. So the reason I don't include a Negro a lot is because I don't want to have anything that relies on that for explanations because I can't TI defend it. But I do say, regardless of what your explanation is regarding one's relationship to negative core emotions like fear, shame, and anger, that it seems that is not an area covered by cognitive function.
Correct.
And so if you don't like that particular taxonomy of negative core emotions or whatever, there is an area, it seems to me, of negative core emotions that's not covered by cognitive functions that you could just write off as the differences in particular experience between individuals of the same type. So Rachel's not exactly the same person as another INFJ. Doesn't mean that INFJs aren't all INFJs. Do we hold other people to certain standards with our tool function? I assume you mean with our tool function.
Mine's FE, right?
If we want to.
Yeah, I would say the same thing, actually.
It's instrumental. We don't have to. I don't hold Rachel to any particular TI account. I don't critique her NI on TI grounds. I value her NI for its NI truths and understand them to be holistic and non-reducible. That doesn't, in my mind, invalidate them. That's both because I value NI as an NE-DOM, but a lot also because of the metacognition, the fact that I'm aware of why and how she and I think, cognate differently, behave differently, are different. I don't expect her to be the same as me. That really helps getting along with somebody, when you don't expect them to validate on your metrics and you don't validate on theirs, right? It's like, this is a TE-DOM shit. TE-DOM expects you to validate on their metric and assumes your metric doesn't exist. That to the extent that your wave deviates from their metric, it's because you need to be more like their metric. All right, good question. What type is Santa Claus? An important question. We may have already answered it. We need to answer it again. We need to go through the Christmas peoples and answer the questions about them because it is the Christmas season.
Yeah. Good question for the Christmas season. I forget.
I mean, look, here's the thing. If you want to know the possible types for Santa. I think we can narrow it down. ENTJ and ENFJ are both strong contenders because the SI polar. Now, there's some problems with that, but I want to make a point about that. SI polar would allow him to go, right?
True.
And then crash at the end of the holiday season. However, ESFJ, ESTJ are also possibilities because look at the SI involved. And he does have a list. He does check it twice. You might say, well, does SI tool need to check things twice? Yeah. SI is all about repetition, actually. I'm surprised he doesn't read it over and over and over again to himself. He's SI, you know. So the thing is, if we're looking at ESTJ, ESFJ, ENTJ, ENFJ, let's narrow it down to the two sensing types for a moment. You might think ESFJ, because he's so jolly, he's got a red nose and oh ho 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 ho. He doesn't say, you know, mean things. But look, that's his public persona. And basically, I'm guessing you're allowing Santa's 8th slot FE bullshit to convince you that he's a jolly good guy. Behind the scenes, he's not saying ho, 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 ho. He's saying go, 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 go as he's yelling at his elf employees.
I mean, he does keep up the tradition every single year, right?
Yeah. You know, one of the Christmas sayings that's posted all around Santa's workshop in big letters with an exclamation point, police your area.
Oh my gosh, you know it though.
He's always telling the elves, why are you leaving? Why are you leaving cotton out? Why are you leaving this, you know?
Yeah, clean your area.
Police your area.
Exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't just mean clean it. It means tidy it. It means organize it. Mm-hmm. It means police the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Is everything in its place? Yeah.
Why do we hear so little from Mrs. Claus? He's killed her soul. He's beaten her down into just, you know, she's given up.
Well, that's why Mrs. Claus' decorations were always one of my favorites because she's so rarely seen.
He's crushed her spirit with his TE domineering over the years. Well, she was a helpless ISFJ. And gradually, you know, he after a lifetime, endless lifetimes of being assaulted continually on her polar TE, she just finally broke and became just this cog in his ESTJ machine. Now she just goes out, hello, children. I am Mrs. Claus. Santa's not gay. Santa's not gay.
Yes, Mrs. Claus.
He's just NI-polar. The whole idea reeks of NI-polar. How am I ever going to get to every fucking house, you know?
I wouldn't know.
It reeks of NI-polar. I'm sure I will be able to until I experience not being able to. It doesn't reek of good TE necessarily, but it does reek of good TE if his goal is to deliver as many presents as possible. Then even if he's promising to get to every house, if he doesn't, he can always just say after the fact, you know what, they're on the naughty list. That's why I didn't get a present. Hi, Dad.
So what's the story? You out early?
No, I'm back. I'm going to come in a bit, help you get Mom on the toilet or something. And then we're going back after the lunch break, Rachel and I, to the tournament. We'll leave here about 1 o'clock.
Okay, so you'll not be here for dinner.
No.
All right, well, we do that tomorrow then. Chicken enchiladas, beans, rice.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
You work tomorrow morning?
Yes.
Okay. So
I'll come in right now.
Oregon had the game won and ended swing in overtime now. Oregon basketball.
Oh, in basketball.
Playing Michigan, which is number 5. Really good game. Except that he was a 10th of a second late with the winning shot.
Wow, I love
It was one of those things. His hand was up, the ball was still in his hand, and the clock went off. But
Just touching his fingertip.
That's like a wow. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
So it's overtime now? Overtime now?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. They're playing number 5 Michigan up there.
Me
Okay.
too.
I'll come in
Michigan's
shortly.
number 5.
But yeah, I know.
Right. I think you just said that, number 5 Michigan. Okay, so
Yeah, just
maybe
kidding.
about 12:30. You want to put Jane on the toilet?
I mean, I can come in before then.
Well, it isn't.
What's a good time? What's
12:30.
Okay, fine. I'll come in at
If
12:30.
you're leaving at 1,
Yeah.
then we will be good for most of the afternoon.
All right, cool.
I can put her on. I can't get her off.
All right, cool.
Okay.
I heard an Oregon
Leave it
family
open?
scream.
Yeah, sure.
That's so funny.
Santa is so sad. He is just being thrown away and being portrayed the way that people want to portray him. So now he's going to go, well, what do I do? Submit to them and make them happy, or just control myself? Well, you know, Santa's lost the part of him that once loved people. He lost that long ago. He's now just a slave to his immortal goal orientation.
Which is getting presents to kids at Christmas.
As many as possible.
Oh, I mean, he's damn efficient.
The naughty nice list is just a big lie to excuse him not getting presents to the kids he doesn't get presents to.
Oh my gosh.
He doesn't even keep a list. He doesn't even keep a
He
list.
knows. Exactly. It's in his head.
It's just like, forgot that kid, whatever. I mean, it's not forgot him. It's just like, you don't have time. You know, I didn't have time to get to that kid. You know, TE,
Yeah.
good enough. TE, good enough is his motto. A little solvency is better than me examining my frame ever.
Santa sucks. Santa's fine.
You know, he doesn't care, though. Santa doesn't care if everyone just likes him for his gifts, because his FE is just instrumental anyway, right? So he only wants them to like him so that he can have them fix the sleigh when it's broken.
Well, he does have a lot of elves.
His elves. Well, what about them? It's a cesspool of trauma, damage, and ontological havoc up there at this point, because it's been going on for thousands of years, and it's all the same people. You know, they're all immortal. Or any new ones. They just get more and more nihilistic and despondent, working feverishly even as despair overtakes them.
Oh my gosh. See, this is the real life. True life. I'm Santa Claus. Like that's the real stuff. You know, funny enough, you know when I was talking to you about the heat miser thing? It's from the stop animation movie The Year Without a Santa Claus. It's one of my favorite ones.
What if Santa has admitted technology and now mechanical elves?
Oh, he's not gonna.
That's what he calls them.
That's what,
They're
exactly.
They're living creatures. But as far as he's concerned, they're just cogs in his machine.
Boom.
He's got every single second of everybody's day scheduled.
Get it, girl.
From waking up to going to bed.
Best believe it.
He's got everybody's bowel movements scheduled even. If you don't poop, he'll give you a laxative.
You know, I don't know.
It is hell. Believe me, you don't want to go there.
Oh, no, you don't.
Well, it's live down. I lost some presents, so I'm going to leave you this present instead. I know it's not what you asked for, but you'll be fine. Okay, come help me switch my sleigh. What is this, Santa? It's a wood chipper. A wood chipper? What am I gonna do with that? I don't know. Chop up some dead bodies or something. Just come help me fix the fucking sleigh already. You got little hands. You know, reach up there, something clogging in the engine, like a stick or something, or a goose. I don't know. Oh shit, that's Donner. Is that Donner's leg? Fuck. I thought we were missing a rain, dude.
Oh my God.
Here, kid. Let me harness you into this thing. I'm gonna sprinkle a little magic Christmas dust on you. You'll be able to fly. It's gonna be a hard night's labor for you.
Oh my God. He's right though. Eric, did you see the avocado on the ground?
No.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a different one.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, but yeah.
Where's our avocado?
It's up there.
Is it still there?
Yeah.
Did you see it today?
Yeah.
I don't see it. Okay, I'll take your word for it. I assume it must be there. I just not seen it.
Yeah.
Another one fell on the ground? It's not, oh, I see that one that fell on the ground.
Yeah. That's a bigger one. I feel like there's a good South Park episode of these thoughtful festivities. There is, but I don't exactly remember what. Fucking Donner. I feel like ESTJ is always like, if I can do it, you can do it. And I like that theory. But I can, but I'm just not good at it.
Okay, so once we get Donner out of the engine,
No.
once we get it out, listen, Billy, bring that wood chipper over here. We're gonna break it in, all right? We're gonna christen this fucker. We gotta do something with this reindeer body. Leave it here in the center of your mom's table.
Dinner. Donner. It's what's for dinner.
Right. Don't look this in.
Don't know.
Remember, it's what's for Donner.
It's a circle of life. Grinds it up for elf food. I don't own a motorcycle made of melon, but I avocado. Have a car though. I like that. That's a good one. Hello there.
If I were going to ask Santa for something for Christmas, I would like to have a wood chipper. Now, that's a machine that can fuck some shit up.
Yeah, you do love that wood chipper.
I love wood chippers.
Yeah.
There's a wood in there, it comes out in a bunch of chips. It's crazy.
But what do you do with all those wood chips?
I mean, what
Don't put them on
do? You I mean,
You put it on fire?
yeah, well, you can use them in your barbecue. You can put them down on the ground.
I'm asking the right person. But don't put them on the ground for sunflowers because then some bugs get them and then it makes stuff. So, yes. But you do have to be careful. What else, sir?
Well, basically, anything you need to chop up that's hard to chop up, you can toss in a wood chipper.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
like, let's say you got a couch you're trying to get rid of, right? You're trying to get rid of a couch and you don't want to transport it to the dump. Like in the past, what I've done is I've gone into my front yard and I have chopped it up with a hatchet. You know, like taking an axe and chopped it into pieces. And that way I've been able to get rid of it without going to taking it to the dump or hiring somebody to take it away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's a better way than that is to put your couch in a wood chipper.
It is.
Yeah.
I would like to see that.
I just got a bunch of couch chips. You know.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in the area of waste management.
I know, granted, we don't really have a place for a wood chipper around here.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not going to deny that. But nevertheless, if Santa were to bring me a wood chipper, I'd probably sell it and it would still be a good present. So Santa, if you're listening out there, write down Hunter, if I've been a good boy all year, and I think I've been pretty good all year.
Yeah.
Most of the year, anyway. Man, I want you to bring me a wood chipper, please.
Let's make it happen. Wood chipper for host Eric 2019.
I want you to restore my belief in Christmas magic. this year
Ooh.
by surprise.
Ooh. Yeah, but if he's an ESTJ, well, maybe he's up for the challenge. I don't know.
Maybe. I'm sure it landed on the elf desk and it immediately threw it in the adult bin. You know.
Did the 2 adults even get a look?
I didn't even get a look.
Jesus was an ESTP. As a rude.
Jesus was probably might have been an ESTP or might have been an ENTP, might have been an INFJ. I like to go with ENTP.
I like that too. He did talk a lot, no?
Yeah. He was like, hey, everybody listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you about God and how good it is and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
His name was EST Jesus, and no one got it at the time. Well, he got it because he's Jesus.
Jesus. But ENTPs, oh my god. You did have a crew. ENTPs have crews.
Mm-hmm. And he rolled with his posse.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Jesus was Jesus.
I'm not the Messiah. Satan INTJ has to be, right?
Who?
Has to be. Satan has to be INTJ.
Definitely. They love that stuff. Really.
I mean,
They identify with it. I don't mind.
the INTJ predicates everything on the notion that everyone is doing everything wrong,
Mm-hmm.
including God.
So that would make it.
Hence, which was like, hey, God. No. Look, I've been keeping my mouth shut. I'm displaying no emotion. But I've been quietly seething over here for quite a while now.
He has a log of all things that are like false in his mind.
I've got the arguments, but ultimately it's going to boil down to utilitarianism.
Mhm.
Okay? And, fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, like think about it. Like INTJ, ENTP, INTJ would like roll up in like the nicest car that's like sleek but utilitarian. Is that it? How do you say it? But an ENTP would not show up in a car like that. Like, not. The car would be from someone else sometimes. They get it from someone else. Or they get it at a good price. Or...
Are certain types more prone to certain religions? I mean, I actually think that the least prone to religion are probably ESTJ, ISTJ, ISFJ, and ESFJ less so. ESFJ is a little more prone just because FE makes him followy in certain ways. But there's that experiential knowing shit.
I think you're dunking it.
It's like because they know things experientially, it's very easy for them to dismiss NI things.
Yeah, definitely. Talking to an ISTJ about that sort of thing can be quite a battle that I do not enjoy engaging in.
Now, I'd say NTPs are probably most prone in adolescence to be evangelistically atheist. Well, look, there are going to be exceptions. The thing is, being prone to religion is a little different than being prone to belief. Non-seeking types they can sort of go with what they're presented, but the seeking types are more likely to find some sort of mysticism or, like, I guess you'd say, magical thinking. Rachel, on the subject of ISTJ, do TIY prefer ISTJ or ISTP? What's TIY?
I do not know.
Maybe that's why are you?
That's what I was guessing. I like them both. I have different discussions with each of them, though. They're both traditional, but I speak with them on different subjects, so it's. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that's my answer. I don't prefer either. I just talk to them about different things, but I do find that they're both fairly traditional.
Well, it doesn't lead to religion, that's for sure, but it may lead to magical thinking beliefs. I think ENTP may be a little bit more prone to that than INTP because intuition first versus thinking first, basically. But I actually think ENTPs are also quite prone to sticking with a rationalist position and writing it out. Meta-rationalism, in my opinion, represents a later stage of development for ENTPs than does rationalism. In fact, I would generally say it represents a later stage of development for everybody. Now, I'm hesitant to say that sort of thing, but meta-rationalism can be attained in two different directions, either from the non-rational to the rational, to incorporate the rational adequately, or from the rational to incorporate the non-rational adequately. Either way, meta-rationalism involves recognizing the legitimacy of the other modality of understanding things. So, my meta-rationalism sustains on a couple of specific arguments, namely that it's appropriate that we okay, well, I mean, first of all, I would posit this, and people will probably have a lot of problem with this, but they're wrong to have a problem with it because it's exactly right. That which faith-based people attribute to God or some other magical thinking kind of thing is the same thing that everybody who considers themselves rationalists typically attributes to evolution. Namely, not the origin of the species, but rather purpose. That the reason people are the way they are is because they were purposed by their genes to be that way, in some sense. It's like, well, we're this way because it's the optimal state to be. It's normatively preferable to be this way than some other way, or at least pragmatically preferable from a special standpoint or special standpoint.
I'm with you. Hello there. I'm done learning. I don't know. Oh, we got company.
It was found. So, where was I going with this? What types do you think are most likely to be hypochondriacs? That's where I was going with this. ISTJs, Followed possibly by maybe INTJs. I don't know. ISTJs, I think most. I'm ENTJ. How do I learn about other types to read them like an open book even more? Well, I guess since you're an ENTJ, if you are an ENTJ, then to learn to read people like an open book would mean, depends on your frame, I suppose. What aspects of them do you want to read specifically? If it's basically how to make them responsive in ways that you want them to be responsive to initiated communications, that's sort of a different strategic approach than if you want to be responsibly effective. Now, assuming you want to be proactively or expressively effective, then the way to understand other types is primarily through their third and fifth slot functions. Remember that people validate on their third and fifth slot functions. So if you want to get through to an ISTJ, you need to appeal to their FI or get them to agree with you attending by a FI, or appeal to their SE to just do shit or whatever. Understanding what they validate on and how is going to allow you to engage them in ways that get less pushback, potentially. I know people are going to say or think before they do a lot, but I'm not doing what's proper, and I go to clown off and I don't let people talk. What they feel, maybe, I guess. Well, a lot of people do primarily need to be heard first and foremost. And then after that, if they're still not satisfied, then they need some sort of either status changed or action taken. So I would say that's sort of universal for all people who come to you to communicate with you, which is, first, everybody needs to feel heard. If they don't feel heard, they're not going to leave the interaction with you in any way that's positive to you.
I think one-on-one is important also. Like if a point is supposed to be made to a specific person, it should just be one-on-one. There shouldn't be other people in the office with them.
Yeah. So once they're heard, then, either if there's still difficulties, then either there needs to be agreement on a new status if they're a TI type, or equivalency that affords them sort of a symbol of express respectful attention. That would be like FE, or they need to have something actually changed, some actual change made, something actually done, which would require either, SE if it's a simple thing, or T if there's a problem that needs to be solved. No, McFarlane, I know you are late. I'm probably having to give you a tardy. How accurate this is? Oh, well, if you are an ENTJ, then it should be very difficult for you to recount specific details about your morning, for example. For me, this morning I got up way too early, like 4 a.m. or something, 4:30. I don't know exactly what time, 5 maybe.
Yeah.
And I smoked a cigarette, came back inside. I turned on the light in the computer. I went back outside. I smoked another cigarette. I made some coffee. I made some coffee before that. Then I'm yeah. So, okay, if you can do that about your morning, then you're not an ENTJ. So you can try that test yourself. What do you ask if people have always the same routine? Well, I ask them if they are remembering what they did this morning, or if they are recounting a routine that's the same every day without actually remembering it. I don't have a test for polar SE. I mean, I can think of tests for polar SE, but they would require me to be in the physical company of the person. Like, here, catch this. Like that kind of shit. You could presumably figure out with enough. If you had some guinea pigs who were willing to help you work out the test, you could determine what things SE polar people could do, wouldn't do, could learn to change or not. Now, I'm not saying ENTJ has a routine. I'm saying this morning when you woke up, you did a succession of events. You did a succession of things. Yeah, INTJs and INFJs can, but you still have to pull it out of them. They start off with like, this morning, well, I usually, and you go, no, tell me specifically, remember what you did this morning. You have to pull it out of them. And this can be confusing at first because sometimes I think SI8 is a SI polar, as I did with Rachel. I asked her those kind of SI questions, and she did poorly on them. Mm-hmm. But actually, her SI is pretty good. She does reference SI memories fairly often as examples for things, or she even processes SI data some. Like she's had some processing about, as we've been together, maybe revisiting some old relationships and sort of feeling mad about those people about shit, and then maybe processing
That's so
that.
true. Yeah,
know?
Yeah.
So she definitely has an active relationship with her SI in some sense.
Yeah.
More so than polar. Whereas a polar person, if you ask them questions like, hey, do you have a significant other? And do you sometimes fight about something on the phone? Go, yeah, sometimes we fight about who's going to pick up groceries on the way home. Okay, well, when's the last time? Have you had this fight more than once? Yeah, multiple times, sure. When's the last time you had it? I don't know. Was it by a text? I guess, yeah. I did that with Steve. So the point is, Ampianic, if you are actually an ENTJ, you will have a similar inability to recount details from your own life. If you can recount details from your own life, then you're not an ENTJ. You can recount a lot of details from memory, not from knowledge. Don't go, well, this morning I got up, I brushed my teeth, I shaved, I took a shower, I put on my clothes, I went to work, because that's what I do every morning. You're not recounting your morning. You're telling me what you do every morning. To recount your morning, you should be going, okay, let's see. I got up. Oh, that's right. I stepped on my slipper when I got out of bed, which caused me to stumble. And I banged my elbow into the wall and I got a scrape. So, like that kind of shit. That's SI.
You recalling stuff makes me recall stuff from this morning. I'm like, how did my morning go?
But I mean, Ampianic, you're, again, this is suggesting you possibly are, in fact, ENTJ, the fact that you're not getting the question. You're giving me a general description of yourself as being shitty about details. I am. Okay, so do you remember that, or are you like what are you remembering? Like, narrow the time frame here. You woke up. Surely you went pee at some point, right? Do you remember going pee? Did you get a beverage? No, it's not the same with recounting movies or books. Absolutely not. Because those are narratives.
So they're easy with that. They can do that. Actually, they do that well. Oprah has a book club.
All right. So if you can recount a fair amount of details, what you had for dinner last night, if you can remember something like this, you don't know the hour. Okay, well, that's different. Knowing the hour, knowing the day of the week and stuff are a little bit different. Like, I might be able to recount the last time I went to a restaurant and something specific that happened there that was insignificant without being able to recall the date. So, for example, one time Rachel and I went to Coco's together, not that long ago, but not last night. and we had a fairly large table, and we both drew pictures, and we just had, I think, pine coffee that time. And the waitress was pleasant and left us alone a lot and said, "You guys look like you're having fun." And I at some point I went out and smoked a cigarette. I remember some details about that. So I don't recall the date it was on or the day of the week or anything like that, but I do recall details about the time we were. I can visualize us there together. I, can picture myself looking at Rachel's picture and that kind of stuff. So that's SI.
I remember it too. I think you remember verbal stuff more than I do.
I do remember verbal stuff better than I remember nonverbal stuff. So I'll remember what people say.
I like that. I do. Because sometimes it's the specifics of words escapes me. I can get the general idea of what the person said, but I like that you can recall it.
That's not an NFJ thing to do. Keep tabs on the specific things that other people are doing is not an NFJ thing. Like Rachel has never asked me really like any kind of SE follow through questions. Like, so how's it coming along with that other thing that you started before? That requires more SI than she's got going on, directed elsewhere than herself.
Yeah. That's a good point.
It's not a male thing. That's a thinking thing. If you are an ENTJ, you got TI fifth, which is a strong spot to have it, so to speak. So it wouldn't surprise me if you remember what people say just fine without a lot of active SI. My SI is weak compared to SI Dom, second or third slot, but I still am very good at remembering exactly what people said because it's very low resolution data. So it's very easy to record, so to speak. Words are low resolution data, symbols, symbolic representations of shit. Images, smells, feelings and stuff, that's high resolution data. What are each of these types' strongest reason to live their best life? E.g., ENFP asking for another friend. Strongest reason to live their best life?
I'm living my best life.
Strongest
going back and forth with
reason.
you and words. So what's the strongest reason for an ENFP to live their best life?
I don't. Give me an example of an answer to that question. Give me one possible way that I might answer the question for one of the types. Are you asking why they ought to live their best life or what their best life ought to look like?
Yeah, that's what I was
why they
too.
ought to live their best life seems implicit in the definition of best life. Like, obviously, it's better to live a better life than it is to live a worse life because that's what it means to have a better life. So one ought to prefer that which is better, I guess. It seems the strong. The only reason you need to try to live your best life is that it's better than the alternative.
Hey, Octavia Silva.
I noticed that many of 16 types are paradox at first glance for many. Well, what do you mean? What aspects of them is paradoxical? Which ones are paradoxical and how? As long as they don't contain mutually exclusive elements that violate the law of non-contradiction, then
stop, Jimbo.
Paradoxical.
That's mean. That would be fucking mean. I had trouble remember a good thing I know BMW cars because with the Mini you have to open it twice to open it, but sometimes still I get tripped up even opening it. Forget about being locked in a car. Yeah. Oh my god.
T.E. Polar's a bitch.
Hey Sean, Ryan, Barron.
Or all you got to do is really basically put a unlocked padlock through the hole of the gate. And it's like,
And that would be an INFJ escape room. I did an escape room. Did you ever do those?
No,
Do
I
you know
never
an
did
escape
one.
room?
I know what it is, but I've never done that.
So I had to do one with a job that I worked for. It was like team building. And my group went to the first room, which was the easiest room first. And I figured out a puzzle and I helped my team. I was so happy. Then we go into the next room, which is like a whole bunch of more riddles and pictures and crazy stuff to put together. My brain was so fried. I was like, you guys take over. I solved that one in the other room. You could take it over from here. I'm not that excited to do this.
This is seeming like work.
It was work.
Right.
I was happy for the pizza.
I am going to smoke a cigarette.
I want to sit outside too, actually.
Okay. You want to wrap this one up? I do want to answer other Rachel's question first. It's a good question.
It is.
What's one or a few things all ENTPs have in common? Well, they're ultimately, each of them, detached from much of what they say, which means they're saying things that they're critiquing on grounds that they're defensible or not. And beyond that, basically by default, ENTPs aren't understanding the things they say. So a lot of ENTPs will be prone to not being honest in certain contexts if they feel as though it's a matter that's subjective. In other words, if we're talking about my feelings, I can say whatever I want because those statements aren't objective anyway. So it doesn't matter what my position on it is, and I'm not misrepresenting anything. So it's like, in that regard, this is true for all sorts of subjectivities, though. Like, and the other thing that can happen is there are some ENTPs who can mistake unsubstantiatable objectivities for subjectivities. Just because an objectivity is not substantiatable on one end of the equation, if you know that the thing you're saying is a lie, then it's still a lie. And it doesn't matter if they can catch you or not. Like if you're dealing with people who are like from the insurance company or something, and you believe you've got something you can say that they can't disprove, if it's not true, ENTP by default will say it anyway.
Yeah.
And I won't, but most will.
Yeah. Sometimes it makes a lot of sense.
It can be the most. The thing is, ENTPs know when a lie is more believable than the truth.
Yeah.
And if they also know whether or not they can get caught in that lie, usually, if they're careful. And so as a consequence, telling a lie that's more believable than the truth that they can't get caught in seems like the default way to go for most ENTPs. And you got to decide at some point not to do that because it gives you an unfair advantage, basically. It's like you already have the biggest advantage possible in terms of most interactions in life. Namely, you're going to win the verbal battles. Mm-hmm. So if you're lying, then you're bad. If you're an ENTP.
Oh yeah.
By default, yeah. If it's instrumental. So it's like, in other words, if it works just as well or better than the truth, both argumentationally and serving whatever goal they have, which is usually just argumentational goals anyway. But sometimes they're instrumental. Yeah. Then they will lie.
Yep.
And it takes a while for them to even realize they're lying. like, it took me for a while to realize, oh, I regularly lie because I know that nobody can check it. Why am I doing that? What's the purpose of that? I excised it because ultimately I have what I think all ENTPs by default have, but may choose to reject, which is objective self-criticism. I have an unusual ability to look at myself and be objectively self-critical and say, you are wrong here. This is why you need to stop this.
That's growth. That is growth. It's so funny. They are the jesters and the tricksters in some degree. I knew a guy who I suspected was an ENTP, and he would nonstop tell stories that I to this day think he completely made up.
That's probably ENFJ.
Yeah.
Okay. ENTPs don't lie like that. In other words, I'm not likely to tell you stories that are self-aggrandizing in any way, or to make you, like me or more. It may be true that, like, when I was younger, I might add a few artistic details to a story to make it tell better without actually changing any of the substantive elements of it. I try not to do that anymore, even. But it's not the case that we're going to be making a bunch of stories like that. That's more of an ENFJ thing to do. It's more like we're going to lie instrumentally as we need to, if we can get away with it.
Yeah, it just makes me think of the Rick and Morty episode with the Mulan Szechuan sauce.
Oh.
He's just excited. He's like, 10 more seasons, Morty. And he's like, we got to get that Mulan Szechuan dipping sauce and from McDonald's. And I'm like, they never had that. That's a totally made up thing. Nope. He was just like so like in the moment, like all these lies just came out.
Well, the thing is, ENTPs are sometimes thought to be either intentionally misleading somebody or lying to them when we are making a dry joke. This is something that happens to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I make a dry joke and other people might believe it because they don't get that it's a dry joke, and I might be oblivious to that fact. I saw somebody else made a dry joke earlier on a live stream I thought was hilarious, and Rachel took seriously. I can't. The person said it was Friday the 13th joke, and they said, "Yeah, I was walking past my piano and it nearly fell on my head," which I thought was hilarious.
Tom Jickelson, you know who you are.
But Rachel was like, that's crazy. Your piano nearly fell on your head.
Yeah, I was like, is that real or is that from a cartoon?
But the thing is, she kind of that shows you NI as well in that instance, because what he gave were contradictory things. I was walking past the piano and it nearly fell on my head. Now, Rachel did the NI thing, which is to remove the extra data that seemed inconsistent, that he'd be walking past the piano, to conclude that he must have meant walking under the piano, I guess.
That is a very cartoon.
And just took it as the impact, namely that, the piano nearly hit him. What do you think of ENTP relationships? I believe my ex and I are both ENTPs, made fun together. Here's how I feel when I'm with another ENTP or an ESTP. When I'm I've never dated either of them, but when I'm hanging out with them, just one-on-one, I get the sense that we both are waiting for an actual audience member to show up.
Oh my gosh, that's so much extroverting right there in different ways too. How funny! God!
Because we're action types, both action types. Neither of us are in the market for their shtick, the other one's shtick.
I would love to put those three in a room.
We might respect it, but we don't seek it at all. We're the provider of that thing.
Yeah.
It's like we're both providing, or we're like two t-shirt merchants standing next to each other selling t-shirts. Not only are we not going to buy each other's products, but we're in direct competition with each other.
It's so funny. I would love to see that. There's gonna be a skit on that. Pete wants me to feed him.
Yeah. All right, let's call it a stream. Goodbye, my friends.
Bye.
Goodbye, goodbye. Don't forget to have some pie, because if you do, you'll surely die from pie deficiency.
Santa's in ECJ, folks.
And God damn it,